Welcome back to another automation breakdown where we break down automated solutions for your business needs. I'm your host, Chris. In today's video, we will be going how to take an ordinary file folder that is connected to our OneDrive account, paste in a bunch of files inside of this file folder. And all of these files, if you notice, are not PDFs. We have some Excel, we have some Word docs. We're going to delete out all of the contents inside of this file folder. And then inside of our email, we will get one email with all of the files converted to PDF. To do all of this, let's hop into our Power Automate account, go over to Create. Now, the first action we need to make is not generated from any of these templates. So I'm just going to click on Automated Cloud Flow, Skip, and on the new flow page, let's just be sure to give our new Power Automate a name. Now let's go ahead and add in a trigger, and this one will be when a file is created, and underneath OneDrive for Business, when a file is created. Let's go ahead now and find that file folder. Whenever a file is put inside of this folder, we want the automation to trigger. So let's first start by creating that folder. I'm currently on my desktop that is hooked up to my OneDrive account. I will go ahead and right-click, create a new folder, give it a name. In this case, I'm going to call it Create PDF. Back inside of the Power Automate, let's go ahead and reference that folder that we had just created. Underneath Desktop, let's go ahead and find the Create PDF. And so now it's referencing, again, every time that a file is added to this folder, let's go ahead and start this flow. From here, a very logical next step would be to convert file. Here underneath OneDrive for Business, we have the action called convert file. Now it's referencing what file are we talking about. And in this case, I'm going to hit the lightning bolt here, the dynamic contents, and let's go ahead and find the ID, which would be file identifier of the file we had just created. The target type is PDF. Again, we want to convert it to PDF. And then the next action would be send an email. I'm sending this over to myself with the subject new PDF generated. And then inside the body, I'm just going to say, please see attached. Now let's go ahead and add in our newly created attachments. Underneath the advanced parameters, we have this attachments section, and I will go ahead and add a new item. In this case, let's go over to dynamic content, and we now have the newly created file name, and underneath contents, we have the file contents. There we go. Let's hit save. So now back inside the Create PDF folder that we created, I will paste in these documents in here. And each one did exactly what we wanted. We took the file contents and we converted it to a PDF. But by doing it this way, left us 4 separate emails that are honestly clogging up our emails. So let's take this concept now and truly make our flow. Did I make a stretch just to insert that clip? Yes, I did. So I'll go ahead and delete out these emails, and let's go ahead and edit our flow again. But I do want to take a pause here, and let's go inspect one of these flows to see the makeup of it. Underneath the when a file is created, show raw data, I do want to point out that this line right here is the file name that was originally used to trigger this flow. For some reason, Power Automate does not reference the file name right here, so we will need to add that back into the flow. Back into edit mode on the Create PDF from folder, this flow that we've been working on. Right after the flow is triggered, what I want to do is reference that file name. So I will add in our compose action right here. I will call it file name. For the inputs, let's go over to dynamic content, and you'll notice that we do not see that file name anywhere listed for us to use. We have this one here, file name. However, if you hover over it, you'll notice that it's file name encoded, which is actually not what we want to use. So we need to go ahead, I'm going to delete this out, and let's go ahead and create this expression. To start off with, I will add in trigger outputs and headers, and reference the same file name convention, the XMS file name. Let's go ahead and add. After this file name that we had just created, let's go ahead and reference this action. List files in folder underneath OneDrive for Business. There we go. And let's go ahead and find the file folder, which in this case will be underneath our desktop inside of the create PDF. Essentially what I want to do is every time this flow is triggered, we will reference the file name that triggered this flow against the first file listed inside of list files in a folder. So after this list files in a folder, I'm going to add in another compose. We'll call it the first file name. And inside of the inputs, let's go ahead and write an expression. We want the first of the list files in folder, and we want the value of it. So we want the first value inside of that array, but then we want the name of that file. So again, we are referencing the first file name inside of this list files in folder against what actually triggered this flow. And if they equal, only then are we going to run this flow. Every other time, we will do absolutely nothing.
And I love it when a plan comes together.
Right after the first file name, let's go ahead and add this action under our controls condition. Let's go ahead and reference both the file name and first files in name, which will be right here. First file name is equal to the file name. If and only if both of those conditions are met, then we will run the true section. If not, we will leave the false section blank. That's the logical flow that we're going to use. So I'm going to take a step back, and right after this first file name, let's add in one more action, which will be initialize a variable. We'll go ahead and give this variable a name, var attachments, and then the type of this will be an array. Currently, right now, we will leave this array blank. Okay, with all of that done, now let's go ahead and work on our true section. So inside of true, we will do an apply to each. This apply to each, we are going to reference the list files in folder and snag all of the content and file names from each item. Apply to each, the select and output from previous steps, let's go ahead and use the lightning bolt, the dynamic content, and reference the list files in a folder body/value. Now that we're going through each item inside of that folder, we will now begin to convert files. So I'm going to take this convert file, move it right inside of this apply to each. Now let's go ahead and delete out our old file identifier, delete, and reference inside of dynamic content underneath the list files in a folder, the ID of that file. Now this has truly been converted to PDF. So the next action, we are now going to append to array variable. Right here underneath variable, the name of the array that we created the open array from is var attachments again, just like we made earlier. Now, what is the JSON, the value that we are trying to reference inside of this append to array variable? Well, we can actually look for that inside of the send an email action. So as I click back on the send an email, down here underneath attachments, if you come over here to the array, you can now reference this JSON, which I will now copy, come back over to append to array variable, and paste that in here. This is the format that we need to append to the array variable. The content bytes, I will go ahead and delete out. Let's go ahead and use our dynamic content, the lightning bolt, and from our convert file, we will snag in the file contents. However, just like the issue we ran to earlier, when a file is created and trying to reference that file name, we're actually running into the same problem we are inside of this append to array variable. And in fact, I'm going to reference inside of the lightning bolt, the dynamic content, list files in a folder, and we will now reference the name. But here's the thing, this name is the original file name. So this will be the .xlsx, the .excel file. Maybe this is a PowerPoint or a Word doc that it's referencing. Either way, it's the original file type. So now we need to switch out the original file type for .pdf. Now here's what we are going to do. Right before the comma, I will delete out the name, and let's go ahead and go to our expressions. we are going to use our substring function, reference the items, and apply underscore to underscore each. Question mark, square brackets, single quotes, and name. So we are breaking this name from the items applied to each name, and we're going to break it and separate it out by the period. Right after we reference the name, comma, 0, comma, and last index of, and we'll start the parentheses. Just like before, items, start the parentheses, single quotes, apply underscore to underscore each, question mark, and once again, we will use the square brackets, single quotes, and name. Right after the name, comma, single quotes, and period. So again, we're taking the substring of it by doing all of this mumbo jumbo to essentially get all of the contents before the period so that we can change this stuff after the period. And all of this is done. Okay, I'm just going to stop explaining myself. Let me just finish up the formula. This right here is the stuff before the period. I'm going to add one more thing, and we are going to concatenate, and at the very end of this, comma, inside of our single quotes, dot PDF, and at the very end our parentheses. Let's go ahead and click add. With this done, we will now delete out the file so that it's always a fresh file folder with no files at the end of this. The next action, just like I said, delete file. OneDrive for Business, delete file, and now we will reference the same ID that we've been referencing under list files in folder, reference the ID. Outside of this, apply to each, we will now send an email. This will be the final action to complete this flow. This time I'm going to go back to switch to input entire array, delete this entire array out, go back over to our dynamic content, and add in our var attachments. Let's go ahead and click the save button like you are going to click the like button. And with a fresh create PDF file folder, I will paste in all of our documents. And what we're going to see is each one of these files inside of this folder, just like this, are starting to be deleted out of the OneDrive account. And now we see inside of my email in the back here, new PDF generated, and all of these files now converted to PDF inside of one email. Referencing back inside of this flow, now you can see each one of these, and it looks like this one took 9 seconds. So this would have been the one to trigger out the email. So when a file is created, we snagged in the file name, and this would be allemployeedetails.xlsx. We then listed the files inside of that file folder, got all of the contents from it, and then the first file name from this list is, well, all employee details. Because of that, this flow was true, it triggered it, and so applied to each, we took the file contents of each item inside of that file folder, converted it to a PDF, appended to array variable, deleted the item, and then sent inside of one email all of the contents. Now, I'll be honest, this does not work for all file types. In fact, it mainly works for just PowerPoint, Word documents, Excel, maybe some text files. It's not for everything. I haven't had it work for any PNG files, anything like that, to create a PDF, but it does work for the remaining file types. Let me know what you think down in the comments below, and with that, I will see you in the next video.